Your boss makes a call you think is wrong. Not wrong in a gray area, not wrong in a reasonable people disagree way, wrong in a way that's going to cost the team. You sit in the meeting, you nod, you walk out, and you tell yourself, that's professionalism. It isn't. What you just did has a name, and it isn't loyalty, and it isn't deference. It's a specific failure of leadership, one that most managers never examine because it's dressed up in all the right language. This video is about what's actually happening when you decide your boss is wrong and say nothing. Most managers treat disagreement with their boss as a risk management problem. How much political capital do I have? Is this the hill? They're running a calculation, and the calculation feels responsible. Reframe. The calculation is real, but most managers are solving the wrong equation. They're measuring the cost of speaking up. They're not measuring the cost of staying quiet, and those costs don't show up on the same timeline. When you absorb a bad call without pushback, you don't just accept a decision. You become the decision's owner. You're the one who executes it. You're the one who explains it to your team. You're the one standing in front of people who trusted your judgment, delivering something you privately believe is wrong. Your silence doesn't protect you from the outcome. It just delays your accountability for it. There's a second cost that's harder to see. Every time you stay quiet when you have something real to say, you train your boss. You teach them that you don't have friction points, that you process and execute, that your judgment isn't something they need to stress test against. You think you're being easy to manage. You're actually making yourself smaller. And when the stakes get higher, and your boss genuinely needs a trusted voice in the room, they won't think of you, because you've spent months signaling that you don't push back. Move. Before your next one-on-one, identify one decision currently in motion that you have a substantive concern about. Not a preference, a concern, something with a real downstream consequence. Bring it, not as a challenge, not as a complaint, as information your boss may not have fully weighed. You're not reversing the decision, you're making your judgment visible. That's different from compliance, and your boss will feel the difference. Premise. When managers do decide to push back on their boss, they usually do it wrong. Not because they're cowardly, but because they've misread what kind of conversation it actually is. Reframe. Most managers frame pushback as advocacy. They're trying to change the decision, so they make a case, they argue, they bring data. And when the boss holds the line, they either escalate or fold. Both of those moves miss the point. The real purpose of pushing back on your boss isn't to win. It's to ensure that when the decision stands, it stands with full information. There's a critical difference between a bad decision and an uninformed one. Your job isn't to override your boss's judgment. Your job is to make sure their judgment has everything it needs. If you've done that and they still land where they land, the decision is theirs to own. And you can execute it cleanly because you said what you knew. The mistake is treating every disagreement as a verdict on your boss's competence. It isn't. Leaders at every level make calls with incomplete information. That's the nature of the role. What erodes trust isn't being wrong. It's being wrong in a way that could have been avoided if someone in the room had spoken. That's the failure you're trying to prevent, not theirs. Yours. Move. Change the internal framing before you walk into that conversation. You're not there to persuade. You're there to complete the picture. That shift changes your posture, your tone, and your staying power when they push back on your pushback. You stop arguing for your position and start offering your perspective, which is a thing your boss can actually receive without feeling challenged. Most managers can't hold that distinction under pressure. Holding it is the skill. Premise. There's a version of this problem that's more dangerous than saying nothing, and almost no one talks about it. It's the manager who pushes back to their boss and then goes silent to their team. Reframe. Here's what that looks like. You disagree with a directive. You raise it. The boss holds. You walk back to your team and deliver the decision with full conviction, or worse, with visible reluctance that you think you're hiding. Your team is watching. They always are. And what they're reading isn't the decision. They're reading you. If you deliver it flatly, they sense the distance between you and it. If you deliver it with performed enthusiasm, they sense that too. Either way, they're now managing around your ambivalence. They don't know what you actually believe, so they can't trust your read on anything. The paradox is this: the most corrosive thing you can do to your team's trust isn't making an unpopular call. It's making a call you clearly don't believe in. Your team doesn't need you to agree with every decision from above. They need to know where you actually stand. That's what makes you navigable. A leader who filters everything through genuine conviction, even the hard stuff, gives their team something to orient around. A leader who's visibly caught between floors gives their team nothing. Move. When you're delivering a decision you didn't choose, name the frame explicitly, without undermining the decision itself. Not the politics, not your disagreement. The frame. What is this decision actually trying to solve? What's the logic behind it, even if imperfect? If you can't articulate that honestly, you're not ready to deliver it. Find the thread you can stand behind, even if it's narrow. Then lead from that thread. Your team doesn't need your enthusiasm. They need your clarity. Those are not the same thing, and most managers never learn the difference. There's a version of loyalty that looks like deference and functions like abandonment. You abandon your boss by letting bad information stand. You abandon your team by delivering decisions you can't explain. You abandon yourself by mistaking silence for professionalism. The managers who last, the ones who get trusted with harder things over time, are the ones whose bosses know exactly where they stand. Not because they're difficult, because they're legible. That's not a soft skill. That's the job.